right, gentlemen, let's roll. That's a nice vehicle for transporting a bike. Which one? The white one.
That's Michael's vehicle there we're talking about. It's got like a small van. It's really cool.
Yeah.
These guys turn here on this parking lot, exit here, but it does not get you to go left.
I think that's gonna force you to go right.
So we cut through here because the actual opening is down there.
Here, Mike.
They end up coming back against
force
the
you to go right,
wrong
guys.
way.
I think they thought it was this turn.
So we got that sorted. You will see them coming back against traffic in a little bit there.
Oh, that's cold.
Want to welcome Chris Rippey,
Car left.
who is our newest patron. We want to thank you, Chris, for supporting the channel. It's people like you that make this possible, to allow us to bring educational videos to all cyclists, and we appreciate your support.
I like them.
On this ride, I left Northampton. Paul was out of town, so he didn't ride with us this weekend. I rode into the woodlands, picked up Team RR. You see where Greg Schott joined me. We went down Research Forest. We picked up Mo's group on Fish Creek, rode into Honier. We cut on to Ribbon Chapel, went out to 2854, all the way to Montgomery at the Taco Corner. And we decided to head out from there on Bailey Grove Road to Johnson Road, all the way into Dakar. We took 1486 south into Dobbins and came back east through the Tri-Lakes route. Very quiet roads up through Canaan Cutoff, back into the Grand Lake Estates area to Honier Egypt Road, and headed back to the woodlands. The group was riding a lot faster than I had planned, so for most of the route I kind of hung back, and Mo and Greg Schott hung back with us. I just was not feeling like going fast, and I was feeling a little under the weather. But hope you enjoyed the clips that we got for you. You can see the temperature says 8C as we roll out. It's one of those days where it's beautiful and fair, and the temperature jumped up quickly within a couple of hours. We're in the 60s. It's like 18C thereabouts, but it stayed around between 18 to 20C most of the time. I just kept my long sleeve Brevet jersey on. Most of the riders here went to a tour. There's a ride going on in New Braunfels, which is between Austin and San Antonio on Highway 35. They call it the Tour de Gruing. And that's where most of the guys attended, so you can see the group is very small. But in a little bit, we pick up Mo's group up here, so the group swell. You know, this time of year, as I told you guys, I'm backing off the intensity, and I just had a week where I rode a little bit on Tuesday with Paul, very short, and didn't get the ride at all. And I think I paid for it on this ride. I didn't ride at all during the week, and then to come and do this ride. I was not planning on going very fast today, but you know, once you get with the group, things change. And so even though I sat in most of the time, the pace was a lot higher than I wanted to do, and my body was not ready. It felt like I was coming down with something. Even Mo said I didn't look that good. Anyway, in a little while you will see Greg here. Greg Schott's turn to go in that parking lot because Mo and his guys are there. They're where the trees are. You will see I put an arrow on them. That's Greg over there, and there's Mo in them. So that's Mo right there joining me, and he asks, you know,
Good morning, sir.
he sees that the group is small. So he said that you guys changed the time.
They're out of town.
So now he remembers that the Tour de Gruing is this weekend, because I told him they're out of town attending that ride. Yeah. That's what we're talking about. Because he noticed I was moving very small.
You gotta drive 3.5 hours to get there, and then you gotta pay $50 to ride.
The ride was crap.
People like
What he's talking about is you got to drive 3 hours to go there because it's close to San Antonio from here. Then you got to pay money to ride on some crappy roads. Other than the terrain, the hills are good. I used to live in the Austin area, so I'm familiar with New Braunfels and that route. The roads are a lot of chip seal. They're not a lot of fun. And so it wasn't something I wanted to do. And that's what he was talking about. We're laughing about. So, I mean, like I explained in some of the other rides, we're going to be, it's good that this is Will here. Will's one of the heavy hitters in this group in the Rafa pink there. This guy's from that Mellow Johnny's jersey. That's Lance Armstrong's bike shop in Austin. The guy on the left there, wearing the Mellow Johnny jersey there. But what I was saying was that we're going to be hooking up with Mo and them. I mean, it's good that they're hooking up with this group here. Hopefully that will continue. But I usually keep up with his ride starts because the plan is their group really edges up the intensity quite a bit. So like in the spring or something, maybe February or so, when we're ready to ramp things up, we plan to hook up with these guys quite a bit. And so that will bring some variety to our rides as well. But these guys are mostly Mo's group here that you see. I in a little bit I roll up here. I greet Will. This is Will. I'm getting up to Mo so we can talk about the route.
I suggested that we go to Taco Corner and then take Bailey Grove coming back. Maybe do the 149 Hills and then come off Keenan, cut up, then maybe take Raven Chapel South. It's got a nice climb and the 854.
Yeah. So wait, from Bailey Grove coming back. So once we end Bailey Grove, take a left.
Yeah, we could do 1097, or we could do Johnson Road at 1486. 1486 would take us to 149.
To Dacus.
Yeah, and 149 from Dobbins is a nice.
We have not done that one in a long time.
A lot of options, so that's what they meant when they said we'll get up there and
So
talk
let's do the
about it.
Taco Corner, and then we'll confirm that one.
Yeah, so.
I kind of, to be honest with you, I would like to stop at Taco Corner on the way out.
Yeah, it's too early for this kind of,
45 minutes.
because I don't get anything off of it. That's that store.
105?
105. That's the
Yeah,
store.
right after. Before the shell.
I think it is.
Right after the shell.
It is the shell.
It is the shell.
It's
We just
a
call it
shell.
that.
Yeah, they make tacos there.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, one of the guys in Mo's group was asking whether Taco Corner was after the Shell, and we explained that it is a Shell station to just make tacos there. And what that was about is Mo said we don't like to stop there in this time of year because when you get there, your bottles are still full. It's about maybe 50 minutes to an hour into the ride. We don't need to get anything. So mostly people just use the restroom and we go. That's what he's talking about. But the plan, I was letting him know what we had discussed in the parking lot before we left. We're just saying that we're going to ride there and then decide. Because a lot of guys will come back because they don't have the time or don't want to go long that day. And usually it's a good point to make a decision for the group. That's what we're talking about. You can see Will moving up. And these guys pick up the pace out of the gate. I think I end up riding up there in a little bit. I think I sit behind Team for a while. But I had planned to not ride hard. And so it really ended up being a very challenging ride for me. After the first hour or so, I was like, man, I don't know if I was going to really make the distance because of the week I had off the bike. I really didn't ride much. And that was my plan because this was a rest week for me in my cycle. And these guys are riding like it's mid-season. I don't ride fast the whole year. So what ended up happening was we take off here. You'll see for yourself as we begin to go, the ride picks up. After the next light, the pace really picks up. So it was a lot of fun. So what I did was I got clips going out and I got clips coming back in for you guys. Just some highlights because really 5 hours of riding, it was hard to choose where to film and not to film. But at least you will kind of get a feel for it. You can see we're warming up at 34, 35. This is faster than we normally warm up. And when you have a lot of time off the bike like I did, like 4 or 5 days, it takes a ride at least to get your body back to where you feel like you're smooth, So my legs just felt blocked up. That's Max behind me there. I think the light must be red because I'm coasting here. Okay, it just changed. So most of these guys usually ride with Mo's group, and what's happening is with their departure being right in that parking lot on the way, it makes sense to just have a bigger group of people to ride with, especially this time of the year. Helps you pass the time. But most of this ride, in fact, I stayed with them until we got past the overpass, and you will see that I let them go after we got into the Horny area, and then Tim and I rode together for a while. Then Mo and Greg came back for us. They waited a little bit off the back and pulled us back to the group. But for the most part, we had intended to ride a lot calmer than these guys were riding. But when you're with the group, it's a lot more fun. And if you can sit in, it's fine. But I just didn't feel like myself the entire ride. And Mo even mentioned that, man, you don't look like yourself. You don't look that good. So during the week, I had felt like I was coming down with something, kind of had a hollow look in my eyes and so forth. But overall, physically, I felt okay. But once I got on the bike, my legs felt empty. I didn't have my usual power that I usually have. So the day after this ride, I just rested. And so today, Monday, I'm going to spin a little bit after I do the necessary office stuff that I plan to do today as I do this narration. And other than that, just try to swing back into things. But I got a good rest over the weekend. The time change was this weekend. So Saturday night after the ride, we move our clocks back 1 hour. So now in the mornings, we have sunlight as we go out, because now instead of the sun rising at 6:45 daylight time, it's now rising at, I think it's 5:45. So daylight is earlier, but the days are shorter, so that means nighttime by 5:30 is dark out. So people who like to ride after work, they're going to have to either do it on a trainer or put lights on their bikes. You can see the pace is picking up. I mean, these guys are riding. We're riding almost at 40 kilometers an hour. It's going to vary because this road's going up right here. But we're riding fast here. And so I'll just sit in. You can hear the wind. I've got it dubbed as usual, but we're dealing with the wind and then up and down. I think Will is at the front. The guy in the pink Rafa Gile with the pink shoe covers. The Belgian style shoe covers over socks. So yeah, so we're riding pretty fast. Okay, 47. The wind always gives the gimbal a hard time, so I've got it in my left hand on the, and right here I go to the right. There Mo's up there. Mo was on Will's wheel. I stayed to the right because this lane narrows, and then we have a bridge. This is definitely harder than I had planned to go. I decided that I would just hang with the boys. You know, it's always more fun riding in company. I decided to just hang to see how long they're going to be going this fast. It ends up that they usually do this, like when the road goes up, they'll hammer the hills, and you get a bit of a lull, which is similar to what you would get in a road race situation. But still, it wasn't my goal, but I decided just for the company, I would sit in here and get some clips. So yeah, so it's faster than I had planned to go today. I'm spinning this gimbal around because it's being affected by this wind, and now it settles here a little better. So Will pulls off the front. I leave a gap for him to get in. He checks, he rolls in, I roll up to his wheel. I'm aware that this shoulder is going to end because right here, you can see where it's got that T intersection sign on the right. Right before we get to that intersection, we have to use the main lanes because it opens up into 2 lanes, and the shoulder pretty much ends. See where that car is? There's 2 lanes now, so I'm already in the lane. We come through here frequently enough to where I'm familiar with what's going on with this. So this guy Will in front of me got his light on what is good for a group mode. It's a steady. I spin the gimbal around again because it's getting a little off center there. What I was saying is he's got his light on steady mode because it's in the group is more effective. It doesn't bother the other riders. That looks almost like a cycle light hot shot. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. It looks almost like the light I have. It looks like the cycle light Dice 50. That's what it looks like. He's got it rigged nicely in his seat post. He's got one of those proprietary seat posts on his Trek. I think he's riding a Trek Veloharmony. I think it's one of the recent models. It has these rigid shapes that they've made them. It's very stiff. So it has a pink seat post. I'm spinning the gimbal around because the wind is just buffeting the gimbal and throwing it off center. So every time I spin it around, it helps it center. The pace did not back off as far as the effort. The speed may be a little under 40 kilometers, but we're going into the wind, up a climb. It may not register, it's probably like 0.7 or something. But we're climbing, you can see the road, and then it's windy. This area is very exposed. And so having taken the whole week off, I'm not feeling particularly great. Even though right now the effort is not that hard, it feels harder to me than it should be. And so I know that I really should be taking it easy. So my plan is to just sit in and just hang with the boys. And hopefully the pace will back off a little bit. The pace never really went down, and I just felt worse throughout the ride. So I managed to finish the ride, but I got a lot of help from Mo and from Greg. Greg shot and Mo. But still, I was riding way below where I normally ride, even when I'm taking it easy. So that was Mo pulling. He pulls off the front. Mo spent a lot of time keeping his eye on the back of the group, especially after we left the store, to make sure everybody stayed together. So I got to chat with Will. Certain parts of the ride is not on film, but Will is a big Rafa fan, and so I was wearing my Rafa kit as well. So he made a joke. He said, "Oh, you got really good taste." And I told him, "Oh yeah, I discovered Rafa in 2012, and they make good stuff, you know." We're approaching an intersection here. I believe the light is red, so you can see everybody's kind of coasting. So the light changers were rolled through. The entire stretch here had been faster than I had planned to go. And so whenever you're in a situation where the ride is faster than you plan to go, you want to sit in as much as possible. And then at some point you're going to have to let them go, because really my goal was just to go long, steady. Because even Tim mentioned, there's Tim on the left here. Tim ended up riding with me after I decided to back off the pace. After we go over the overpass, he falls off the pace, and so I decided to back off once we get up to Raven Chapel Road. And he mentioned correctly, so he said there's a lot more ride left to ride, you know, because we had planned to ride long, but not this fast. Now these guys ride long, but they don't really slow down much. And that's fine if you're peaking or building or doing whatever you're doing. And, you know, so that's just not, at this time of year, that's not my goal. So, you know, if you're fit and you're able to do it, that's good. The problem is you got to make sure you don't get burned out, because if you ride the same way all year, at some point you'll just get sick of it. You get to where you plateau. So I don't like to do that. So I'm sitting in the group and I'm in my sweet spot area per se. So I know they're going fast. Because usually when I'm in the group, I'll be in like zone 2, usually. But it's gonna vary with how hard they're going and who you're riding with. That's what we talk about. It all depends on who shows up. So with these boys, yeah. If this were February or March, that would be right up consistent with the kind of training I'd want to do at that point. So right now, I want the hours in. That's my goal. So every time the road goes up like here, they don't back off. You can see I'm sitting really close. The road goes up here as we approach Rich Lake Shores. You see some people stand, some people sit. I mean, whatever you feel like doing. I believe I remain seated. And you gauge that based on how you're feeling and, what kind of riding you prefer. It may seem easy from looking at it on screen, but it's not. I'm pretty close. I'm above sweet spot sitting in. And with the wind and this terrain, yeah, it's a good clip. Everybody's staying close because of the wind and the effort. I'm approaching the middle of zone 4 for me now, which is really not where I should be. And so at this point, my plan is, once we get past the overpass, to back off the effort. Because it doesn't look like these boys are going to slow down much. I spin the camera around to kind of get it to settle. It's a little off kilter. The gimbal anyway, not the camera. This guy on the right is just some rider we passed on the road. He's not part of the group. He's holding his pace. He's got a good position on that TT bike. Quite a few riders I see on TT bikes that just don't look as stable. He looked pretty good there. You hear the wind picking up. We'll go downhill. Wheels up there, pushed in the screw. We're hitting almost 50 kilometers an hour, 49 kilometers an hour. There was a slight downhill and I kicked back up. This is gonna be maybe a 2% climb here. So you have to shift appropriately as the road goes down and goes back up. If you're riding rolling terrain, make sure your shifters are adjusted properly or you will have all kinds of headaches. I slipped to the left here to get a good shot. I didn't want to be directly behind this guy. The camera's in my left hand. The gimbal's in my left hand. So when you see the situation where they're going harder than I want to go, and now we're approaching the overpass. So what I do is I make sure I stay close. I keep my cadence consistent. As we approach the climb here, I don't shift down too much. I shift down only when I need to. So I stay in the same gear I was in. And right around here, I believe I go down maybe 1 cog. Just enough to stay with the bunch. I've got people behind me, and you see as we approach the top, they will come around. So all I do is I keep my power the same. I don't pay attention here. Here we go. A couple of guys come around. I keep my power the same. That's Tim on the left there, and I continue to ride. You'll see Michael come. Yeah, that's Michael. And by this point, we're almost at the top. I just didn't want to go any harder than this. And since it's over, I keep my pressure on the same, and I would end up going in front of Michael back to the group because he backs off. I'm actually in the lane because there's a lot of debris that we just passed, and that sign was on the shoulder. There's a lot of trash on the right. You see that? So I just stay in the lane, and I go past Michael here. I didn't back off much on my effort. I just kept it steady and hard. And that's what you want to do. Even if you're climbing and people come around you, keep it steady. And you can see my heart rate has dropped like almost 9 beats. And the group takes a break. There's a lull in the action here because whoever was pressing on the front has decided to back off or pull off. I see Will on the left there in the pink. So once somebody backs off, if nobody goes through to keep the pressure on, the group bunches up. That's normal. This lane is going to end to where we'll have no shoulder right here. So I'm already in the lane. And right here, I just continue to roll through. I don't leave a gap for Will here. I continue to just ride, keeping my effort the same. At this point, I've already decided that once we get off this road, I plan on backing off. I'm not feeling that great. I didn't plan on going this hard, and I'm like, these guys are riding a lot faster than I had planned to do today. You will hear me tell Greg in a few kilometers that I didn't plan on riding this fast. He laughed about it. So we've turned on the highway, we're rolling on this road here. I basically backed off the power. I'm sitting on Tim's wheel here. There's gonna be a slight downhill after this little rise. I don't think it's even a 1%er here. Once we go over this little hump, there's a long downhill. Tim's pointing out the obstacles. I already know the road, so I'm just avoiding. I'm on his left right now. At this point, I've decided to back off the power. So I basically get in a tuck since we're going to be rolling downhill. You can see I'm coasting. So you've probably been in a similar situation where the group is going faster than you planned. So even though you wanted a camaraderie, at some point you decide to just let them go. So that was my plan here. I figured I would just let them go because I wanted to back off and just get endurance miles in. Especially where we live, because the weather is so favorable, there is a tendency for people to ride the same pace all year. And so unless that's consistent with what you're planning, or if you have an event coming, you want to really be careful about that. This is Rudy here. Rudy ended up telling me at some point during this outing that he had ridden more than 100 miles on the Saturday last week and then 140 miles on the Sunday. And, you know, I was like, wow, that's a lot of miles. If that's consistent with your plan, that's fine. But you got to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. This is about where I tell Greg that I wasn't planning on riding this hard.
I plan on riding this fast.
So I tell Greg that, and he laughs, and we go around the corner. And I decide I'm just going to back off the pace. Tim's behind me at this point. So it ends up just being Tim and I riding together for a little while through the Raven Chapel Hills. And by the time we get near 2854, Mo and Greg are there waiting on us. The group is a little up the road, and they end up just pulling us back. But I decided to back off the pace here, so I'm waiting on Tim. And so after Tim comes up to me, I make it clear to him in a little while that I'm not chasing these guys, you know, because I intended to drop the effort here. You can see the group stays within sight for quite some time. I just sit on Tim's wheel. The reason I stayed on his wheel was I actually had planned to go slower than he was going, but for some reason he was trying to hold a pace close to the group pace, which for me didn't register because then he should have just stayed with the group. I don't know why he got tailed off, but it's like I told him in a little while, I said, I'm not trying to chase those guys. You know, then he did tell me, yeah, there's a lot of riding left to be done, but you know, I hadn't planned to go this fast, so I just sit on this wheel here, straighten out the camera. You can see the framing is really good here. I got that sorted out. The group's right up there. But my intent was to back off of their pace and ride at my pace. So we proceed to go up to, we're going to hit the two hills here on Raven Chapel. We end up doing mill route. I spin the camera around here to get it situated. You can hear the wind. So that's what you have to do. If the group is going faster than you want to per your plan, you can back off, ride alone, or find another rider who's going at a pace. You know, Tim's going a little close to where I wanted to go after following up the group pace. That's why I'm sitting in, I'm not pulling. This is a few beats below what the group was doing, so I decided to sit in on his wheel. You can see it right up at the stop sign. We're not that far off, but I wanted to get a long ride in today, and I didn't want to go as fast as they were going. So as I sit on Tim's wheel here, I go ahead and drink, take a gel, do whatever I need to be ready to just finish this beautiful day. It's such a fair day. The weather was very nice. You know, it's sunny. I'm not sure exactly where I told Tim, hey, I'm not chasing those guys, because he seemed to be trying to get up there. My plan at this point was to just get to the taco corner at my pace. You can see it right up there at the top of the hill as we begin to climb it. Between the wind and the hills, I decided to just sit in. He seemed to be doing fine. He was holding the pace. I don't remember where I actually told him that, hey, I'm not chasing those guys. I think it was probably on Mill Route. I don't believe I have that on film. In a few kilometers, I go ahead and I believe I turn the camera off until we're picked up, until Mo and Greg shot return. You can see the guys up the road turning right. They've already turned, we're just approaching the turn. I give him a little room as we approach the turn. We're not gonna see those guys because of the curves. You're not gonna see them, they're not that far ahead. So part of this ride when I was with Tim here, I went ahead and shut off the camera. In a little while, I'm gonna cut to where Mo and Greg has picked up. You see the guys down the road begin to left on that curve. I don't know if you can see the little spot, but anyway, this is where Mo and Greg have picked us up. We're on 2854, and we're just basically sitting in on their wheel. There are quite a few riders that fell off the group up the road. We catch up to some of them. But Mo had to basically tell one of them to back off because he kept going faster and faster after we caught up to him. Mo said, hey, take it easy. You know, and Tim even joked him about it. But I just never felt smooth and comfortable on most of this ride. You know, even though I hung in and successfully completed it. And the learning message here is that you have to stick to your plan. So since my plan was not to go as hard as they were going, wherever possible, I was sitting in. I did not pull at all. I didn't feel that great anyway. Even more confirmed. He said, man, you don't look like yourself. You don't look good. So whenever you feel less than 100%, sit in or let them go. And stick with your plan. Or even if you have to turn around and end the ride, if you feel really bad, that's fine too. The wind is heavy here, so I'm sitting in really close. So we're going up a climb. It may not register. It's probably between maybe almost 1%. But then the wind. And this is where I think Mo told them to back off, because they kept going faster and faster. So the thing is they waited for us, and then they continued to accelerate to try to catch up to the group so quickly. And so he went to the front to stabilize the pace. That's what Mo's doing up there. So even though it wasn't very slow, he kept it steady. I moved to the left here to just kind of catch the wind and slow down as Tim moved right, because the pace was changing. And now Mo's up there, he's keeping it fast, but he's keeping it steady. And basically what I did is I kept my cadence low and just used a larger gear than I normally use, because that just felt better. That's the thing, when you take off a lot of time off the bike, you don't feel it smooth. So I wasn't feeling great, I was feeling below par. I knew that it had been a rest week, I hadn't ridden much, so I said, okay, I'll just hang with them till we get to the store. That was my goal. I'm spinning the camera around to stabilize it because of the wind. Spinning the gimbal. So at this point here, we crested the last rise here before the light at 105. I leave a bit of a gap because the speeds are gonna pick up. We're kind of going downhill. See, it says -1. We go downhill for the next couple of kilometers. You can hear that wind as we pick up speed. I put it in a large gear and keep my cadence low. That just felt good to me for some reason. This is the light at 105. It's all downhill. I just sit back here and coast. I go past Greg's shot here. Greg stayed behind quite a bit of this ride to give me a wheel whenever I fell off the pace. I just was not going to ride at their level, and I really wasn't feeling like myself. So it was like, so he and Mo did a lot to egg us on, and as a result, we were able to do the whole ride. I didn't think I was going to do the ride with them. So I did a time lapse here because it was a long light. And then after this intersection, I basically flow into our return on Honia Egypt Road. Because we ended up stopping at the store briefly and then we headed out Bailey Grove. So this is us returning on Honia Egypt Road. Thanks to Mo and Greg Schott, we hung in there. We got through the Grand Lake Estates. It's a little warmer during the day now. You can see it's close to 70 Fahrenheit. It says 21C there, probably about 72 Fahrenheit. I didn't have to take off anything because the Rafa Brevet tights that I was wearing in my Brevet jersey are very breathable. They work well in up to like 25C. comfortable. Plus, we had a lot of wind, and so at this point in the ride, I was feeling a lot better. Not having ridden much, and so thanks to Mo's pulling us back. There's Tim up there in front of Rudy. I'm not feeling great or anything because the pace was a lot faster than I wanted to do for the duration. It's about 3 hours into the ride, so I've got about 2 hours left. An hour to the ride start and an hour to my home. So at this point, I decided I'm just going to hang with them till we get to that hill. There's like a steep climb at the end of this road when we get close to Fish Creek. And they usually attack me, so I decided that would be a good one to back off the pace. Just take my own pace and finish the ride. So you always have to have your own plan. Everybody does, usually in a group. You need to know what your plan is and what you're going to do. So the entire ride I sat in because they're going pretty hard throughout the entire time. You can hear the wind. It's later in the morning. We have a lot of wind from the south. That's why it warmed up so quickly. So we got a southeasterly flow, I believe. That was Mo at the front that was pulling. Then he goes all the way to the back to sit in and make sure nobody's left behind. In a little while here, Tim kind of falls off the pace. I go ahead and decide to sit on his wheel briefly as we go around this curve. I didn't pass him here. Other riders come around me. You will see that shortly. The guy goes, I look left, make sure it's clear. After this guy, I believe, this gentleman here. After Mo, Mo was sitting at the back. So I roll up behind Mo's wheel. You can hear that wind. I stayed to the left because the right side of this road is chewed up. There's a lot of ruts and cracks. So I ride up to Mo's wheel, and I believe Tim is on my wheel. And normally this pace would be very tolerable for me, but today it just felt hard. I wasn't even spinning as well as I usually do, so I just kept the gears high and used my strength. That's why you see my cadence is usually I'm pedaling to 90 plus, and today I was like 75 to 85 thereabouts. Because that's what felt good, to just hold this effort with nothing. So even though this is faster than what I wanted to do, I decided I would hang with them until we got to that last climb, and then I would back off and finish my ride. So you always have to have your plan. Know what you're planning to do and stick to it as much as possible. And sometimes it can change. You go out and you're feeling great and you want to push hard, that's fine too. Nothing wrong with that. But your overall plan should keep you in the zones you plan to be in. So overall, my average was in my range. It's just that for quite a bit, I was above it, even sitting in the pack. So that told me that something was up. Normally in this pack, I should not be feeling like the effort was so hard, but it did, even though I was sitting in. You can see I'm very close to Mo because it's very windy. I'm looking around him so I see the obstacles. You can see nobody's pointing out. We're going hard here. Nobody's got the time to point out. So I'm looking around him to see what's coming. And right around this curve that we turn and the hill, you can see it in the distance. And they see it too. So the people who are at the front all of a sudden turn off the power. The guy in all black, that's the guy who was wearing the pink jersey. More pushes this guy to like go on through. Because nobody wants to go to the front because that hill is coming. Because if you're sitting at the front, chances are you're going to get attacked once we get there. So nobody was looking forward to that. That's why Mo pushed him on his back and said, go on through, keep the line going. I had already planned to back off here, so I wasn't staying. I just stayed to the right because I figured that when they go, they're going to come on the left. So I'm going to stay to the right and hold my effort. Everybody knows the attack is coming. I mean, you know, there's a hill. It's a long climb at the end of a long ride. 3 hours plus into the ride. So that's just the way guys out here ride. I did not plan to go with the front group. I figured I would sit with the middle group or the last group here and finish this climb. We're on the climb. I'm already in the gear I need. I stayed on the big chain and just shifted back because I've got a 28 on this wheel. As they begin to pull away, I just ride. So Tim comes around. I don't know the name of that other guy. Once Greg comes around, and then this is Maurice. I got close to Maurice's wheel just to finish this little bump. In company, that's all. So at this point, I'm like, okay, it's time to let these guys go. So you will see me let them go. Right after the credits roll here, you will see me slip back. Basically, I let them go and slip back to a more comfortable pace for me. You hear the wind, it is blowing. The wind picked up tremendously later in the morning. So I'm in the middle of zone 4 here. A lot harder than I planned to go. So I decided about here to just let them go. So I hope y'all got a chance to get some K's in. Today's ride did not go according to plan, but I hung in there and got my hours in. So hopefully next week I can get back on my regular schedule. Keep the K's coming in and keep those doctors fired.